The storm is here. Andrew, in his green riding mac, is sitting on the books. One bolt splits the sky right above. The water's rising. Will he stand up and make the deal, or sink with what he's hiding? Will Prince Andrew trade his secrets for a golden parachute? In other words, could this disgraced royal, now stripped of his titles and facing mounting pressure from across the Atlantic, be tempted to spill the beans on Epstein's shadowy network in exchange for a promise of immunity, financial security, or some form of protected exile? It's a theory that blends high-stakes drama, geopolitical manoeuvring, and the timeless allure of self-preservation. And as we look into this, we'll examine the facts, the possibilities, and the profound implications for the monarchy, for justice, and for all of us watching this unfold like a real-life thriller. Let me start by setting the stage with the most recent bombshell, because context is everything here. Just 2 days ago, a group of Democrats on the United States House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, led by Ranking Member Robert Garcia and Representative Suhas Subramaniam, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, along with 14 other members, sent a formal letter to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. That's his new civilian name, by the way, after King Charles III formally stripped him of his princely title and his Royal Highness style on October the 30th. The letter isn't a subpoena. It's a request for voluntary cooperation. They want him to come to Washington for a transcribed interview as part of their investigation into Jeffrey Epstein's criminal enterprise. The committee is seeking to understand the full extent of Epstein's operations, including how a figure like Andrew, with his access to elite circles, might have intersected with it all. Now, because Andrew is no longer protected by diplomatic immunity as a working royal, and remember how he used to always be right beside the Queen's side, and I did a video years ago saying that he feels safe when he's with her because you're not allowed to arrest somebody on royal grounds. Or even right in the presence of the Queen. So by hiding behind her skirts, so to speak, he was always safe. He always made sure that he was at Windsor or at the palace. He was always near the Queen on royal grounds. That's why I think he liked not just the size of that estate on Windsor, the Royal Lodge. I think it was also that because the Queen was there, he was safe. And he might well have felt the same sort of level of safety being in the proximity of King Charles. But I think all that has obviously changed now. So, because he is no longer protected by diplomatic immunity due to having his titles removed, no longer a working royal, and given that the committee lacks the jurisdiction to compel him across borders, this boils down to a gentleman's agreement, or more realistically, a high-stakes invitation he could easily decline. And many are saying that he won't go. But here's the intrigue. Why now? And what might it take to get him through those doors? To appreciate the gravity of this moment, we have to rewind just a bit to grasp Andrew's precipitous fall. It wasn't long ago that he was Queen Elizabeth's favourite son, the Duke of York, residing in the opulent Royal Lodge on the Windsor estate, a 30-room mansion that's been his sanctuary for over 2 decades. But the Epstein scandal has eroded that world brick by brick. Back in 2019, After that infamous BBC Newsnight interview, where he infamously claimed he couldn't sweat and didn't recall meeting his accuser, Virginia Giuffre, Andrew stepped back from public duties. Fast forward to this year, and the pressure intensified. New allegations surfaced in unsealed court documents from Giuffre's defamation suit against Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's convicted accomplice, painting a picture of Andrew not just as a peripheral figure, but as someone deeply embedded in Epstein's orbit. Flight logs show him jetting on Epstein's infamous Lolita Express multiple times. Photos capture him with young women at Epstein's properties, and Giuffre claims that she was paid by Epstein to have sex with Andrew on 3 occasions when she was 17, led to a civil settlement in 2022 for an undisclosed sum, reportedly around £12 million, which Andrew funded partly through sales of gifts from his mother and loans from a controversial Kazakh billionaire. By October the 30th, King Charles had had enough. In a rare and decisive move, using the ancient mechanism of letters patent, the same tool monarchs have wielded for centuries to alter titles, he formally removed Andrew's prince designation and HRH status. No longer can he be addressed as His Royal Highness or styled as a prince in official capacities. He's been evicted from Royal Lodge, with reports suggesting he'll relocate to the more modest Frogmore Cottage, which was, as we know, once home to Harry and Meghan. This is not just symbolic, it's seismic. Andrew's annual stipend from the King, previously around £250,000, is under review, though sources whisper he might still receive a 6-figure payout and some ongoing support to avoid outright destitution. But, let's be clear, Andrew's finances are a house of cards. The Epstein settlement drained him. He's no longer welcome at royal events, and his consulting gigs, remember that eyebrow-raising payments from a businessman linked to a pension fraud scandal earlier this year? They're drying up. He's vulnerable, isolated, and crucially in desperate need of a lifeline. Enter the American invitation. Not a threat, but perhaps the glimmer of a deal. So, now to the heart of this theory. Could Andrew be enticed to cooperate? And if so, what would that golden parachute look like? I believe it's not only possible, but perilously likely, given Andrew's character and circumstances. We know from his history that money speaks volumes to him. Epstein himself, who was a financier who dangled wealth and access like bait, and Andrew bit repeatedly. Flight manifests and witness accounts place him at Epstein's New York townhouse, at Little St. James, on planes, on yachts, all places where money pooled like water. Now that money is gone, and what he's left with is a little island of silence and debt. But yesterday, only yesterday, the UK government quietly shifted position. Not a demand, not a slap on the wrist, just a calm, almost kindly suggestion. You know, Andrew, perhaps you ought to go. Perhaps if you do, if you sit down and speak, everything doesn't have to be quite so terrible. And that's the thing. He's dumb enough to believe it. Not clever dumb like Harry, not scheming dumb like Maxwell, just ordinary royal dumb. He thinks if he goes, if he names a few names, if he says, yes, I knew, but I didn't touch, that Charles will whisper, thank you, and hand him back a key to somewhere warm. Because Charles doesn't want the monarchy looking worse, doesn't want the next front page to read, Epstein's boys, the full list with Andrew front centre, but with 10 other Windsors in the background. So they'll say, give us enough, not too much, and we'll soften it. We'll let you keep Frogmore. We'll pay the bills. We'll even let the daughters keep their titles if you don't drag them in. And Andrew will think redemption. He'll think, I'm doing the right thing. He'll tell himself it's noble, but all he'll actually do is fly Coach Plus to Dulles, sit under fluorescent lights, give up Maxwell's ledger and come back with a pension and a gag order. Meanwhile, everything else keeps moving. Beatrice's signature on the chalet papers, someone will look again. I've heard they're really digging deep into this right now. Someone will notice the links. Quietly and methodically, the same pen that took Andrew's name will start on Archie's, on Lily's, on Harry and Meghan's. Because once a precedent is set, once one royal trades silence for survival, no one else gets to cry foul. They'll say, well, Andrew did it, why can't you? And William, he won't even have to speak. He'll just sit back, crown on the shelf, watching the tide come in over the chessboard, wave after wave, square after square, until the pieces that shouldn't be there simply float away.